Shocking, positively shocking. I think that's the reaction of most Bond fans today when they learnt about the news that Amazon MGM are taking over creative control of the James Bond franchise. It was announced in, first it was leaked by, I think, Variety, and later
No,
put.
I figured
No,
it out. There was an actual announcement. It was on 007.com. Variety was
yeah.
quoting from the statement.
Okay, right.
You had to dig a while to find it, but I eventually
Uh-huh.
did.
Okay, right. So it was on the 007 website, and I think the title is a bit misleading. Amazon
Oh,
MGM Studios announces new joint venture with Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. It says nothing about handing over creative control to Amazon.
you had to read the text, and you had to get past the headline. It's a class. I mean, this happens all the time with press releases. Um, Headlines can obscure the facts. So you had to read at least one paragraph in to pick up, the fact that they were getting control. That was the news. The forming of this joint venture is not the news. The
Hmm.
joint ventures is merely the vehicle for
Hmm.
Amazon MGM to take control. Also, just as an aside, there's all these quotes. I wouldn't bet the mortgage, but I'd bet $20 that nobody said what they're quoted as saying. Somebody was assigned to write the press release. They came up with the quotes. Then they were given to the people being quoted to sign off on.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
reckon Greg Wilson probably wrote the press release for them, or the
who
quotes
knows?
for them. Yeah.
And then it was gone over by lawyers before it was
Yeah,
issued.
yeah. But sorry.
The end of December that Bill and I did an emergency podcast where Barbara was quoted as calling them idiots. And here we are barely 3 months later, 2 months later. And
Our trusted partners, according to Michael
here's
G. Wilson.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's here's the keys to the Aston Martin. Have fun.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
quite head spinning.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've got to say about this is that I think we talked about this previously on James Bond and Friends, Bill. But it for me, it's kind of shocking and not at the same time. It's kind of half expected as well, because it was clear that if they had kind of run out of steam with working on Bond films, and certainly that's the case with Michael G. Wilson. And I had the idea that without Michael, Barbara didn't have maybe the confidence to go ahead on her own unless she could find a new partner that she could work with in the same way. And I wasn't sure if Greg Wilson could step up into that role or not. But people have been telling me for the last few years, whenever I say that one of the options is that they could sell out, people call me an idiot.
Well, if I may, because
Call
what
me
I'm
an
about
idiot.
no, what I'm about to say, it's something I lived through, which is with family-controlled companies, it's really hard to get past the second generation. It
Mhm.
can be done, but in more often than not, they break up, get sold off. This is not exactly a sale, but
Mhm.
clearly Wilson and Broccoli are getting out. And I mean, they'll retain ownership in this joint venture, but I mean, Amazon's calling the shots. I lived through this. I was working at a newspaper in Indianapolis. It was family controlled. And they, the founder had put in a trust. Oh, the paper can't be sold, except there was a provision about unless there was an emergency. Well,
Mhm.
over time, the family members that didn't want to sell died off, and the ones who
Mhm.
wanted to sell were, gradually got control.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden, it's for sale, and it got
Yeah.
sold. And I remember I went in to work the day that the news came out, and I was going up the elevator with a staff member in another news department, and she said, "Well, what do you think is going to happen?" I said, "We're going to be sold." And I was probably a little harsh, but I've been through this, covering it, so now I'm living it.
Mhm.
And a couple months later, we got paper got sold. And
Yeah.
2 years ago, or not quite 2 years ago, 2023 at Gather All, this Bond fan thing in New Jersey, I was asked to be part of a small panel discussion. And so the
Mm-hmm.
question came up, well, what do you think is the future? And I told that story. And I said, I'm not predicting this is what's going to happen with Eon,
Mm-hmm.
but it could happen. And I could tell I was losing the audience. This is not what they wanted to hear. So I wrapped up as quickly as I could. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, it was certainly one of the options. I mean, if you're sensible in business, you keep your options open. This may not have been Plan A. They may have intended to take another direction, but if they really couldn't get on with Amazon, then something had to give somewhere, and this was one of the obvious solutions, really.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know, it's shocking, but as my brother-in-law pointed out to me this morning, George Lucas sold Star Wars, and
Hmm.
he had far more invested in it creatively than Michael and Barbara did, because that was
Hmm.
really their fathers adapting someone else's material. So
Yeah.
it's just there's such a tradition behind these films, and being a family-owned business, I can't even fathom at this point, a few hours after this announcement, what the feature is going to look like. If we're going to see like a director being announced in like the next month, or how
Yeah,
fast they're going to want
I
to roll on this.
I think that maybe that will happen. Maybe that will happen. I mean, maybe if Amazon has got any sense, well, maybe they have actually been working to a plan A and a plan B, and
Yeah.
one of the options there is that they have been talking to directors behind Barbara Broccoli's back. I don't know.
I mean, it's quite
Ooh.
possible that we could actually see Bond 26 in 2027. We're early enough into 2025 where they could get it done at
If they
Christmas
really
time 2027.
Yeah,
pushed, yeah.
if they fast tracked it, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
another possibility is Amazon appoints a producer, a new
Mhm.
producer who will actually, be kind of on the hands-on person, and they'll be reporting up the chain to Amazon
Yeah.
MGM executives. Um, but yeah, all bets are off now because
Yeah.
Yeah.
we've been talking about when will Bond 26 come out. It might not come out till 2029. Well,
Yeah.
you can take
I
that
think
off
that,
the board. We're in
yeah,
uncharted
absolutely.
territory.
Well, I think it's not going to mean a further delay to Bond. Amazon being Amazon, they are going to
There's no way
push
they're going
to
to
get
sit on
something.
it. They
Uh,
invested how much? $8 billion buying all the
8.45 billion to buy all of
buying all
MGM.
the
yeah.
yeah. They're not going to wait. They're going to want to make
Yeah,
their money.
I wouldn't have minded just the 0.45. I could do plenty with that.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
buy that new bronze gold Omega.
Yeah. I forget when in 2021 it was announced, but it was maybe before No Time to Die
Mhm.
actually came out. And then the deal actually closed, was completed
Yeah,
sometime in
it was.
2022.
Yeah, I think it was like May 21 that it was announced. So it was a few months before No Time to Die, I think.
Yeah. And then this is something I've cited before. So Wilson and Broccoli took out an ad in the trade papers or something where they said, "Oh, Amazon, please keep Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdi. These executives at MGM.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah.
worked with them. They're wonderful." Well, they didn't keep them.
Hmm.
They landed at Warner Brothers. And I was really surprised, to go that public. I mean, they could have, done a, private communication, but no, they actually made the move to take it public like that, which is not a real Eon thing normally.
Hmm.
And that was maybe an early sign. Oh, things might not be going so well.
So, what was your initial reaction when you heard the news?
I went to actually my fingers were trembling. I
Yeah.
was like, I saw the Variety story, and I'm like trying to call it up on my phone, and I was having trouble typing with my thumbs, and then when I got out to the laptop to write my post, once I had found the actual press release, and I was fingers typing were like really. It took me a while to kind of calm down.
Hmm. Yeah, it gave me a bit of a weird feeling. It's excitement that something's happening, but trepidation as well, because we are well into uncharted territory. And I think Amazon has a bit of a history of, and well, not just Amazon, all of the streaming giants have a bit of um, an issue with. Content, as Barbara Broccoli was so angry at, and I for quite a long time, readers of my website have contacted me and said they don't want Bond to go to Amazon because many of them fear that it's going to go the same way as Star Wars under Disney, and for me. I understand where they're coming from, but it's not that. I don't think it's that close a match, to be honest. Because for me, Star Wars was ruined by George Lucas, not by Disney. I never really got to Disney Star Wars. It's just with all the constant tinkering to the films, and just making them worse all the time. Plus the first set of the first trilogy of prequels. That completely killed my interest in Star Wars. I did watch the more recent three on the big screen, but I'm not interested in Star Wars anymore.
Yeah. Jar Jar Binks was not the fault of Disney. Jar Jar Binks was the fault of George Lucas. Jar Jar Binks, Misa, so annoying. Just one of the worst creations of a popular film franchise ever.
Yeah. Should we call that episode that Jar Jar Binks was not Disney? Maybe it won't go down well in a Bond podcast, but I don't know.
No. Now, I have to admit, I do have concerns, because if Amazon really wants to create a Bond cinematic universe, I don't think Bond lends itself to that. I mean, okay, with Marvel, which is owned by Disney. I mean, Marvel has characters going all the way back to 1939. Now you can debate how well they've been handled, and some of them haven't been handled. But there's a plentiful supply. But with Bond, you've got what? You got Bond, you got M, you got Moneypenny, you got Leona Posby, whatever her name was.
Ponsonby.
Yeah. You got Boothroyd, Q, Felix Leiter.
I think it's Lelia. I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's pronounced.
That's maybe roughly a half dozen, running characters. It's like, I mean, what are you gonna do? Have a Hawker, the caddy, teaching, giving golf lessons on a streaming show.
I mean,
yeah, in fact, that's a great idea. Yeah, you'd love that, Bill.
For sure, I can see them doing a Felix Leiter miniseries or TV show. A prestige. Either have him be in the modern CIA, or a Pinkertons type thing. I'm a little sleep deprived today from work, and when Bill sent that message this morning, I just was dumbfounded, and I still having a hard time wrapping my head around what this could mean, and not. It's like, does that mean David Arnold is going to be back? Are they going to start a whole new slate?
Oh, please, yeah.
They gave away, their creative control, but did they leave in place stipulations like Bond must, always be a man? Because that was one of the things that she was impressing upon people in recent interviews, that that they were playing around with the idea, but that he would always be male.
Yeah, personally, I think that giving well, we're saying giving away creative control. What we mean is selling creative control, because although it's not mentioned, there's no chance that they gave this up without money exchanging hands
Right.
in some form. And so I think giving up creative control means precisely that. They have no input. They'll make money out of the future films, but they won't have any input in it at all, unless Amazon wants to get them involved for some reason. And I don't think that will happen, because it's like, well, let's go back to Star Wars. When Disney took over Star Wars, they retained George Lucas as a creative consultant, but then never used him.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
like it's
George
an honorary
Lucas wrote up
title.
George Lucas wrote up a bunch of ideas, which they probably
They
ignored.
threw out.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to still see, A-list directors? Are we going to get more of like a journeyman director? There's just so many questions right now about what kind of film we're going to get. I mean, before all this happened, it was, what's the tone going to be? And now I feel like that's even more open interpretation of what they want to do next. Like, there's no way to predict. We don't have 60 years of history with Amazon to look back at and see how the pendulum shifts always go with like the Broccoli family.
Yeah, I would say that if they've got any sense, they're not going to deviate too much from how Bond is perceived, and so probably it'll be a bit lighter in tone than the Daniel Craig era, I would expect. But I don't think they're going to, or even though the even though it's like rip it up and start again, I do think that if they stray too far from what people expect, then they are going to lose audiences. And it's one thing that Amazon won't do, I think, because they're so driven by the algorithm that the algorithm would tell them stick to a Bond that current fans want.
Like, what does this mean for promotional partners like Omega or Aston Martin, who just made a big launch of their new F1 car this year to James Bond music and really laid heavily into that brand identification with the franchise?
Yeah, and evoking the world is not enough. As they ran that video. I didn't realize it when I first wrote about it. I guess those two guys were the drivers of the team.
Yeah, no, that happened to me when I watched it live. I had no idea that it was the drivers in because they were like Q boats, and then I think maybe you shared a YouTube of just that, or have you shared it with me yesterday? And I watched it again, and it's like, oh, hang on, that's the drivers. What a bloody idiot I am.
And then I updated my post because Aston Martin early Wednesday morning posted a longer thing of their ceremony. And so after that video ended, in come the drivers. It reminded me sort of the 2012 Olympics, where you had made it appear as if Bond and the Queen.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, now all of a sudden they're here for real.
Yeah.
I don't think I watched that. I'll have to
Red
look
Bull
at that.
did something similar, but it wasn't anywhere near as effective or as glamorous as what Aston Martin did.
Yeah.
Because they even had a main title style song performed live by Thames with a live orchestra. Like, they really went all out, leaning into like the glitz and glamour of Bond. But like after today, like, are they going to be partners with Amazon?
That's. I think that's.
Well, it may depend on the contracts. I mean, Amazon may have to carry it over, either that or pay them off. Here's some money for you to go away.
Brown at Amazon Prime.
Well,
get your Octopussy kimono from Amazon shipped directly to your door.
Yeah,
next time the Bond movies are on Amazon Prime, and if you pause it, there'll probably be a thing on the side of the screen. Oh, add this to your shopping list.
But
I was about to say, I would not be surprised on Bond 26 if Broccoli and Wilson do receive a form of credit. They might be
Oh,
listed
yeah,
as
for sure.
executive producers or something. But I mean, executive producer, I mean, sometimes executive producers actually have something to do with the film. Other times it's like a contractual obligation. Blade
Yeah.
Runner 2049, one of the many producer credits, was a guy involved with the original Blade Runner. He's dead now, but he still gets a credit. Like, I guess what? They went to a Ouija board. Well, what do you think, bud? Got his instructions
That's a
that way.
neat trick, isn't it? If you could pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with this, they're setting up a new what do they call it? A new entity to control the Bond franchise. So this means that Amazon is basically going to have the movies. Presumably, Eon is just now the 007 store.
Yeah. I mean,
And it's because
they'll get their cut of the money from the film revenues, I suppose. But yeah, it's
no,
the
I'm
007
I'm sure. Yeah. It's the 007 store. Yeah. So I guess if you have problems and you need to return or something, you may get lucky and have Barbara Broccoli answer your emails.
Oh my. Well, I mean, Eon's not a big company. I've heard it's only about 25 people.
Yeah,
But like,
you see
are they
that-
going to go away? Are they going to get paid off? And I suppose they'll still maintain their archives and such. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, yeah, they'll maintain that, but Barbara Broccoli's been increasingly working on other projects, and so I guess they'll just retain as much staff as they need to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't. It's well, they'll have somebody to polish all the Oscars. Oh no, they haven't got any Oscars. Oh yes, they have.
The Thalberg Awards.
They've got the Thalberg. Yeah, so they need somebody. They need somebody to keep the Thalberg Awards polished. Yeah, keep the display cabinet nice and shiny. They need. I don't know who else do they need.
Because the Oscars that were won by the movies, those would have gone to the people who won them.
Precisely.
So the producers receive Best Picture credit. Bond has never received Best Picture, but those Thalberg Awards are theirs. So so somebody's assigned full time to keep them a nice polish, I suppose. But another thing I've seen people ask: why now? Well, it's stuff we've known. It's like, Michael Wilson just turned 83 and Cubby Broccoli was 87 when he died. So, if you want to enjoy, whatever time you got left, you don't have to worry about a movie now. You can.
Yeah. No, I was always expecting No Time to Die to be Michael G. Wilson's final Bond. Anyway, I remember saying it numerous times on probably on this podcast, but also on James Bond and Friends, because there comes a time when you just want to spend the rest of your life doing the stuff that you love, and maybe he did love making Bond films, but there comes a point when it's just too much, especially when he was complaining about them since, I don't know, since forever, as far as I can remember.
Since at least Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah. Okay.
Talk about the burden of making a James Bond movie. And he did it multiple times. I mean, that wasn't just a one-off, and it wasn't like he was having a bad day. This was definitely a recurring thing.
Yeah.
I know. On Quantum of Solace, after that had wrapped, he was complaining about it as well. And I get it, because a movie. I mean, I've never been involved in the movies in any capacity, but there are so many moving parts and so many people involved and so much money, and it just must be an absolute nightmare to produce if you're a real producer, which I think we can say he was, and so.
And it wasn't just producing; he was co-writing scripts at certain points.
No, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So that he was really involved. He was really involved. Roll his sleeves up and dive in. So a credit to him.
Well,
You know,
and Barbara Broccoli was born 18 years after he was. They had the same mother, but they were born 18 years apart. And, she'll turn 65 in June.
mhm.
And so, I mean, she's in good health as far as we know. And, but, you know, it, it, trust me, I retired at 65. It's like,
Yeah.
think about it. And she has, I've written this before, while she was the daughter of Cubby, in some ways her work habits were kind of more like Harry Saltzman's
Mhm.
because, Harry was going off and doing other things when the Bond series was at its peak in the 60s.
Mhm.
He goes off, he makes 3 Harry Palmer movies. He
Mhm.
produced Battle of Britain in the late 60s. He always had other interests beyond Bond. And
Yeah.
in that sense, Barbara Broccoli reminds me of Harry.
Yeah. And I completely understand it because Bond isn't her own thing. She wants to go out and prove
Yeah.
she can do it on her own. I think. I think there's. I'm not going to knock her for that. I think that's if she's in the position to do that and get films made at whatever budget they are, then I think that's a brilliant thing. So you know, I think it's an opportunity for her, and she's taking it. So that's a good thing for her. And okay, shall we move on to something which is what are your hopes and what are your fears for Bond 26 or really the direction of Bond from now?
I hope that whatever happens, that this series remains an event, like an event film.
Hmm.
Every 2 to 3 years we get a movie,
Every two, let's
and
say
that
two.
yeah, I mean 2 would be ideal, but I don't know if they can crank them out that fast like they used to. It depends on who they cast as their actor and all that. I just hope they get someone who embraces the role and the heritage of Bond, and that whoever's making the film, writing, directing, scoring, that they understand the heritage and the
Hmm.
legacy that they're taking on, and keep that in mind, but also try and bring their own take it, but not too. It's always that weird balancing act, trying to be fresh and new, but not straight too far. And I just hope whoever they get um, maintains that, and that they don't
Hmm.
go the Disney route where they just throw IP any which way to get something made. I would love to see just Bond stay on the big screen first, and then like I mentioned earlier, like if we got a Felix Leiter series, okay, I'd probably watch it. You know, um, but I don't want to see like a Bond TV show necessarily.
Hmm.
I want it to be that special feeling that every time I see a Bond trailer for the first time, like I get the hairs on the back of my neck rise, and I get that tingle of excitement, and I
Hmm.
want it to be that big deal that I always feel the first time I see a Bond movie that I don't get with any other film franchise. I want that excitement. And I had that for a time with Star Wars, but like that dissipated so quickly
Yeah.
when they started doing a movie, even though they were different movies and I enjoyed them to various degrees, but like having to be every year, it didn't feel the same anymore. And it's gotten to be that point too with like comic book films, because there's so many coming out, like it loses the appeal. And I like the
Yeah.
idea of a
You
Bond every
want
two to
a
three
bit of a
years.
gap between films, but not too long a gap.
Yeah, getting dressed up and enjoying it, and having that gap is really important because you don't get
Hmm.
tired of it, and but you want it to be frequent enough that the audience doesn't forget about it. Because that's something I've
Hmm.
been saying for the last few years now. It's like I don't want people to forget Bond because they keep talking about how he's an outdated character since 1995. And
Hmm.
by being away from the public eye when there's so much in your face now, that he's going to get lost in the shuffle. So whoever comes in, I hope they have all that in mind and just
Mhm.
make a really great, solid adventure film that's true to the character.
Mhm. What about you, Bill?
Well, for Hope, well, it is a chance for a fresh start. Um, I mean, I'm not particularly critical of Purvis and Wade, but after 7 straight movies, maybe it's time for some fresh blood on the writing, for example.
Mhm.
Um, and so it is an opportunity for that. But subsequently, or at the same time, I have the fear that, okay, does Amazon understand what they've got? There was that one anecdote in the Wall Street Journal story in December where they're having a meeting. Amazon people were having a meeting. And I think it was more about 007 Road to a Million than the movies themselves. But somebody gets up and says, I don't consider James Bond a hero. This, and that,
Mhm.
and that. And it's like, what do you think you got? I mean, the,
Yeah.
so do they understand Bond? And I don't know. How many of them have seen movies made before, say, I don't know, 2006?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about a lot of people? I did a video about ways that they could reboot. Well, ways they could do Bond 26, and it talked about rebooting and various ways that they could bring ignore his death and things like that. But a lot of comments on the video were people saying that they wanted a period piece Bond and to basically go back and make all the novels as period pieces. What do you think of that idea? Are you
I
pro that or not?
I'm not opposed to them remaking the novels and being more faithful, because if you were to do it in the proper sequence, like, you could get some good story beats out of telling You Only Live Twice and Majesties and in the same structure as the book
Yeah.
order went. Because a lot of the movies got flipped around. I just don't think you need to make them period pieces. It would be an interesting thought experiment, but I
Hmm.
think you just need to keep Bond current. Like, there's certain characters that have evolved as they've gone along. Like,
Hmm.
Batman is still not stuck in 1939. Fleming never intended for Bond to be stuck in 1952. He kept him present. He kept him current. And I think,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that would be a
His age never
fascinating.
changed, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
Bond's
He
like
was
a comic
always in
book
his middle
character.
30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just he's constant. So I'm not opposed to remaking those movies, but it should be done in the present day and not be set in 1952.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I've got mixed feelings about about doing Bond as a period piece, and in some respects, I would be interested in seeing it, but I, I've. I'm never 100% sure that it would be the right thing to do. And I think for me, it would be really odd to remake some of the films. It's just like
Some
Casino
would be too
Royale. We
close.
had it.
Yeah,
It's what?
some would be too close to the original films.
Yeah, it's like Casino Royale for being the obvious example, and I think most Bond fans that I know love Casino Royale, consider it one of the best Bond films, and so why remake that now? Um, and
But
okay,
Moonraker,
yeah, Moonraker. But I don't want to see Doctor No remade. I don't want to see Goldfinger remade because
yeah.
if you do Goldfinger, do you do it by the film with the ejector seat in the Aston Martin, or do you do it by the book if you try to make it more faithful in a period piece? It's I think that would be pretty difficult to pull off because Goldfinger especially is so embedded in the public consciousness of Bond that, especially for a certain age of Bond fan, that it would be impossible to remake Goldfinger.
Yeah. And, with Live and Let Die, um, boy, there would be some issues. I mean, Ian Fleming Publications has issues. They
Yeah.
edited the transcript. That there'd be some issues with trying to do a faithful by the book, live and let die.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, it depends. There's a quote attributed to Stanley Kubrick, something along the lines, if a mind can conceive it, it can be filmed. So,
Mhm.
never say never, but there would be some issues going into such a project.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to add, either of you?
It's the end of an era, and the thing is, I've known this was a possibility. As I explained, I lived through a situation like that. But even if, as much as you think that, when it actually happens, it's like getting hit by a 2x4.
Mhm.
No matter how long you've expected it, it's just, why now? Well, there's lots of, the same reasons you thought it was possible. That's why. It's just now it just all worked out that way.
And what are the ramifications of trying to make a movie in 2025 or 2026 with the political climate of the world being what it is right now, with proposed tariffs and renamings of countries, and there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of logistics that would have to be worked out, and we have no idea what that's going to be by the time they're ready to film.
The fraying of the U.S. European alliance, another big thing out there.
Yeah, on Blue Sky yesterday, I posted a thing saying in Bond 26, Felix Leiter will be pitched against. Bond will be pitched against Felix Leiter and his KGB buddies.
Oh my!
I didn't get any negative feedback from that. I thought I might, but
wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, well, we are 37 minutes into this, and I think maybe once we've digested this a bit, it'll be good to return to this topic and see what we feel about it in a few weeks, don't you? Yeah. Okay.
Right, because we're literally recording this hours after the news came out, and so I think all of us are still, digesting.
Bill, I can see Bill, and he's trembling as we speak. I can see.
It hasn't even been 4 hours since I found out, so yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't actually introduce either of you at the beginning. Apologies for that. I did intend to, but we got into the conversation faster than I thought. So, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm David Leigh. You can find me at thejamesbonddossier.com. I'm joined by Bill Koenig, who is the Spy Commander, and Javi Trujillo. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And where can people find you?
I'm the Bond is not enough on Instagram, and at Javi JAVI.TRU at Blue Sky.
Okay.
The Spy Command is at hmssweblog.wordpress.com. I'm still on X. I'm on Blue Sky. I've got an Instagram account, but I don't use it very much. So those, Blue Sky and X are probably the social media places. And I also have there's a Spy Command page on Facebook. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So, okay. Well, thanks for joining me, both of you. And well, I guess service will, our regular service will resume shortly. So, thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.